House may wish to recall that on 11th October 2022, during Matters of Urgent Public Importance segment, Dr. Katakwe, the Honorable Member of Parliament for Solwezi East Parliamentary Constituency, raised a matter of urgent public importance on the Minister of Health on the alert by the WHO on contaminated cough mixtures for children. Following your guidance, Madam Speaker, I wish to render this ministerial statement on the cough mixtures that are of substandard and are posing a danger to children. Madam Speaker, your directive followed the questions that were raised by Dr. Katakwe, MP, who wanted to know, one, whether government was aware of the 4 contaminated brands of cough mixtures. 2, whether the 4 brands of cough mixtures that have been cited as contaminated are on our shelves in various parts of our country. And 3, what immediate measures is the government taking to recall them so that our children's health is protected? Because these drugs are posing a danger to the kidneys and the malfunctioning of such organs in the body. Madam Speaker, the Zambia Medicines Regulatory Authority, ZAMRA, is a body established under the Medicines and Allied Substances Act number 3 of 2013. ZAMRA is mandated to regulate and control medicines and allied substances in the country in order to ensure their consistent conformity to acceptable standards of safety, quality, and efficacy throughout the pharmaceutical supply chain. Madam Speaker, Zambia is a member state of the WHO, and ZAMRA, as a technical arm of government through the Ministry of Health, is part of the WHO Global Surveillance and Monitoring System for substandard and falsified medical products, which was launched in July 2013. Madam Speaker, I wish to inform the House and the nation at large that on 5th October 2022, government through ZAMRA received from the WHO a medical products alert number 6 of 2022 entitled Substandard or Contaminated Pediatric Medicines Identified in WHO region of Africa on 4 contaminated medicines, namely number 1, promethazine oral solution. Number 2, Cofex Malin baby cough syrup. Number 3, Markov baby cough syrup. And number 4, Magrip N cold syrup. Madam Speaker, the above 4 medical products for children were manufactured by Maiden Pharmaceuticals Limited, Haryana, India. This came to light in September 2022 when the Gambian health authorities established a causal relationship between the observed acute renal injury and the death of 66 children, and the use of those pediatric cough medicines, and they reported the same to WHO. Laboratory analysis of samples of the 4 products confirmed the presence of unacceptable levels of diethylene glycol and ethylene glycol. These chemicals are known to be toxic to humans when consumed and can be fatal. The toxic effects can include abdominal pain, vomiting, diarrhea, inability to pass urine, and headache, as well as altered mental state and acute kidney injury, which may lead to death. Madam Speaker, according to the Medical Products Alert, WHO has cautioned member states that these 4 products may have been distributed through informal markets to other countries of the region. Madam Speaker, following receipt of the alert from WHO, ZAMRA immediately disseminated the alert to healthcare workers and members of the public. In addition, ZAMRA also issued public notice that contained further guidance to the members of the public and was widely circulated to various media houses and social media platforms. Further, ZAMRA made appearance on national television to discuss this matter and other related issues. The House may wish to note that in addition to the above measures, ZAMRA heightened the inspections of both licensed pharmaceutical premises and the informal markets. Madam Speaker, so far these efforts made by ZAMRA, it has been established that these four medical products are not available in Zambia. Further, I wish to assure members of the public that the 4 products are not registered by ZAMRA for use in the country and have not been authorized for importation into Zambia. Madam Speaker, the other measures that are already in place and are sufficient to detect substandard medical products, as well as those highlighted in the WHO medical alert, include, but not limited to, the following. 1, conducting inspections of medical products at various parts of entry. 2, curbing sale of medicines and allied substances in unregistered or informal markets and drugstores, and the prosecution of offenders. Number 3, screening of applications to import medicines and the allied substances to eliminate unauthorized medical products. 4, continued advocacy for healthcare workers and the members of the public to report any of the 4 medical products cited in the WHO medical alert to the National Pharmacovigilance Unit of ZAMRA. Number 5, routinely sampling and testing of medical products of the National Drug Quality Control Laboratory at ZAMRA to monitor the quality of medical products circulating on the market. Madam Speaker, as I conclude, I wish to inform this august House that Zambia is the current Vice Chair for WHO Member State Mechanisms platform on substandard and falsified medical products, representing the Africa region. This is an organ under the WHO which coordinates the global fight against substandard and falsified medicines. Therefore, the country has access to information on quality and safety issues in a timely manner. Madam Speaker, the efforts of government through ZAMRA in the fight against substandard and falsified medicines is clearly demonstrated through the efficient and effective product recalls that ZAMRA has undertaken in the past. Enhanced sampling and testing to ensure quality, and the number of persons that have been prosecuted for contravening the provisions of the Medicines and Allied Substances Act number 3 of 2013. Madam Speaker, allow me to take this opportunity to assure the nation that there is no need to panic, as we do not have any of the 4 named substandard medical products registered on our Zambian market. In addition, ZAMRA has never authorized has never authorized the importation of the said substandard medical product, and any person who will be found dealing in any of these four products will be visited by the long arm of the law. Madam Speaker, in order to avert injury to health and also loss of life, I wish to strongly urge members of the public to only source medicines from registered pharmacies and health facilities. Further, members of the public are urged, in the event that they come across any of these four medical products, they should not use them, but report to ZAMRA immediately. As a caution in general, for any member of the public who suffers any adverse reaction, the reaction event after use of any medical product should, after visiting the nearest health facilities, report the incident to ZAMRA. Madam Speaker, I thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members are now free to ask questions on points of clarification on the ministerial statement given by the Acting Minister of Health. The Honorable Member for Chirubi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Though the Minister of Communication is trying to intimidate me, I would like to find out, now that the pediatric cough mixtures have been identified with one manufacturer, who in this case, I think he manufactured those toxic pediatric cough mixtures. Have we taken care to see whether this manufacturer has sneaked in other range of products, or medicinal products, to our pharmacies, especially that we are dealing with a liberalized environment?
The Acting Minister of Health.
Madam Speaker, I thank the Honourable Member for Chilubi for the follow-up question. The answer, Madam Speaker, is very clear, that these products are not registered on our market, and there's been no import license given for anyone in Zambia to order these particular products. And I think the nation can be comforted in the knowledge that they are safe. As to his general question as to whether the suppliers are banned throughout, I think that's a separate issue. The responsibility of the ministry through the various agencies, ZAMRA and so on, is to ensure that these particular products do not find their way to the Zambian market. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Solwezi East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to find out a point of clarification from the Minister. Knowing that the government regulatory laboratory has an establishment in the Act, and if we look at the drugs that we've been receiving, like the COVID vaccines, the nation generally has had no capacity to test the ingredients that have been in those drugs. Now, coming to what the Minister said, I want to find out how widely established do we have these laboratories to test the food and the drugs, substances. Is it only in Lusaka, or do we have them scattered around in case these drugs are sneaked where we are not able to detect them or even test the ingredients found in them? Just want to find out on that, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. The Acting Minister of Health.
Thank you to the Honourable Member for Solwezi East, the one who raised this particular question. Currently, Madam Speaker, we have adequate laboratory facilities in the country, and what we have said is any substance that appears to be substandard is surrendered so that it is tested. Those that are found to be substance indeed, they are quarantined, and disposal mechanisms are then put in place. In terms of the labs in country, we think that they're adequate. But in the event that some substance cannot be tested here, as we have stated, Zambia is a member state of the WHO, and we can call upon other facilities elsewhere to help us determine the efficacy of these substances. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Chama South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Minister, for that ministerial statement. But, Madam Speaker, I want to report to the Minister that we are very worried here in Chama South, I know Muyombe area, up to Nakonde, because we are bordering East Africa, where these fake drugs are. We are grappling, Madam Speaker, with a situation where all the clinics here are dry, no medicines. People are given prescriptions and we don't have these pharmacies. And they will end up falling prey to the bogus suppliers, especially along the borderlines. Are there measures that you put, surveillance measures you put in place to ensure that, especially along the borderline with the East African countries where these fake drugs are, to ensure that our people in Nakonde, our people in Mafinga, our people in Chama, and our people in the entire country, and children in particular, are safe, Madam Speaker? I thank you.
The Acting Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Member for Chama South for that follow-up question. We have to be careful that we do not alarm the nation and citizens along the borders. If you listen to my statement, this was confined to the state of Gambia. We have carried out surveillance measures as the Minister of Health to ensure that these are nowhere in Zambia. In terms of carrying out further alert measures to make sure that along the borders from Nakonde to the areas that he talked about, these are part of Zambia, and therefore they are also subject to the stringent surveillance measures as described in my ministerial statement. These apply to the whole country, including the ones at the border. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Lukulu East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, would you like to assure the members and members of the general public that in fact Zambia does not deal with this manufacturer, made in pharmaceuticals, which supplied these toxic substances to Gambia, and that any of its products, as a result of that, are nowhere near and so far cannot find their way on the Zambian market, and that therefore our citizens are safe? Would you like to assure the members?
The Acting Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You can see the quality that we have on this side of the House. Dr. Kalila, who is a medical practitioner, has raised a very important question. These particular substances, including the manufacturer who we have stated, are not on the Zambian market, and therefore the Zambian populations can be comforted in the knowledge that their products are nowhere near the Zambian market, and it will remain so. And in addition, our regulatory authority, ZAMRA, are on the lookout together with the health facilities to make sure that this remains the status quo. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The last one, the Honorable Member for Chembe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, I wanted to find out how regular do you do these inspections, especially to these pharmaceutical institution who supplies the medicines to our people, like pharmacies, etc., etc. How regular do you do the inspection? Is it quarterly or yearly? Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
The Acting Minister of Health.
I stated, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to Honorable Mpundu for that follow-up question. What I did state is try to give a synopsis as to the responsibilities under the Act of ZAMRA to ensure that the products that are in our health facilities are up to standard. But it's not only ZAMRA, it's all the health institutions, whether it's a clinic in Jembe or indeed anywhere else. They have a responsibility and a mandate to monitor these products. And where certain products are of substandard, these are reported to ZAMRA, who will then carry out much more effective tests leading to quarantining those particular subjects and having them disposed of or destroyed. So the honorable member should be comforted in knowing that whether it is ZAMRA carries out monthly or weekly or yearly and so on, the surveillance is a continuous process throughout the country using our health facilities as well. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. There's a point of order from the Honorable Member for Chinsali. What is your point of order, Honorable?
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, our standing orders are very clear on the decorum of members when they are in the House. Madam Speaker, if you look at the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security is busy sleeping instead of paying attention to the business in the House. Is the Honorable Minister of Internal Security and Home Affairs in order to sleep and dream in this House instead of listening to the proceedings that are going on in this House? Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I need your serious ruling.
Can you cite the standing order that has been breached?
65, Madam Speaker.
Thank you so much, but that is a wrong standing order.
Speak.
I'm sure the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs, although maybe the eyes were closed, but I could see that he was listening to what was going on in the House. Very much attentive. Okay. The Honorable Member from Pika, you have a point of order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise on a very serious point of order. Apparently, some honorable members in this House, Madam Speaker, are very unrepentant. Madam Speaker, you have ruled on several occasions that citing Standing Order number 204, you have ruled on several occasions that all members are supposed to follow proceedings in silence. When my colleague, the Honorable Member of Parliament for Chinsari, rose on a point of order directed at the Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security, the Honorable Member of Parliament for Mwandi turned herself into the chair, and she was passing her own rulings from where she's sitting. That the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs was actually not sleeping, but mediating and meditating. Meditating according to her. Is she in order, Madam Speaker, to continue passing running comments when the House is considering serious matters, including a very serious point of order from the learned Member of Parliament for Chinsari? Madam Speaker, I seek your very serious ruling.
Thank you so much. Of course, if the Honorable Member of Parliament for Mwandi was making running commentaries, she was definitely out of order. Because a member is supposed to listen in silence to the debates in the House. I think all members, what we should know is that please let's minimize noise. Let's be very attentive. The people are waiting for you to say something on their behalf. So only members that are allowed to speak, and in fact it's only one member at a time. The others should remain quietly and they should be attentive to what is going on. We move on. The next issue on the order paper is questions for oral answer under Standing Order number 76. The Honorable Member for Kasenengwa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 76.
The Acting Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the Honorable Philemon Twasa, Member for Parliament for Kasenengwa, who asked the Minister of Health following two questions. A, whether the government is aware of the critical shortage of reagents at laboratories at the University Teaching Hospital and Levi Manawasa University Teaching Hospitals. On that one, the response, Madam Speaker, is government is aware of the shortage of reagents at the laboratories at the University Teaching Hospital and the Levi Manawasa Teaching Hospital. His second question, which is B, if so, what urgent measures are being taken to ensure availability of reagents at the hospitals? Our response, Madam Speaker, is as follows. Government has put the following measures to ensure availability of reagents at the two hospitals. Number one, the University Teaching Hospital and Levi Manawasa Teaching Hospital are to continue procuring using local resources such as grants and the payments for insured health care services made by NIMA. As we await the bulk procurement from Zambia Medicines and Medical Supplies Agency, ZAMSA. Number two, ZAMSA has placed an emergency order to procure hematology and chemistry reagents and consumables to the value of 1 million kwacha for each institution. In other words, 1 million kwacha for Levi Manawasa Hospital and 1 million kwacha for UTH to cover 30 days operations at UTH, and the same, as I said, for the two institutions. For the medium to long term, ZAMSA has successfully completed the bidding, evaluation, and selection process for suppliers of laboratory reagents and consumables. The three contracts will cover hematology and chemistry tests. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Any supplementary questions? The Honorable Member for Kasenengwa.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. With your indulgence, allow me
Order. As the time is now 10:40 hours, I suspend business for 20 minutes for a break.
Well, thank you so much for still being with us on Parliament Television. The House has been suspended for 20 minutes, and at the time business was interrupted, the Honourable Member of Parliament for Kasenengwa was just making a follow-up on the question he asked earlier on to the Minister of Health. So when business resumes, he'll continue asking question from the Minister. And earlier on, Claudette, we did see the House considering Her Honour the Vice President's question time, and there was an announcement that Madam Speaker made.
We also had a ministerial statement by the Acting Minister of Health, Honorable Mulupi, who updated the House on the alert by the WHO, that's the World Health Organization, on contaminated cough mixture for children. Just now we take a break, we'll be right back.
My full names are Musumali Vumango Pasco. I'm the current Member of Parliament for Zambezi West constituency in the northwestern province of Zambia. I am married to Belinda De Beer. We are blessed with 4 children. I come from the aviation background. I've not worked anywhere other than the airport, which is Zambia Airports Corporation. I am a procurement officer by profession. I hold a diploma with the Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply, London. Basically, that's my personal details. As you may be aware, Zambezi West is a rural constituency. It's a very vast constituency which has not seen any development since independence. But I'm glad to inform you that with the coming to power of the new Dawn government, we have lined up developmental projects like bridges, acro bridges, which are permanent bridges, which are going to be constructed by the Zambia Army. We have laid up projects like schools and clinics infrastructure, which are absent, and where they exist, they are really dilapidated. We have laid up projects with the farmers in the constituency. For your own information, we have bought tractors from the CDF allocation to assist our farmers in cultivation so as to attain food security, not only in the constituency, but the country as a whole. Our main focus is on rice growing or cultivation. As you may be aware also, we have a very short working window in my constituency, as most of the period is waterlogged, which is an ideal situation or climate for rice growing. We have 5 months of a dry spell and 7 months of wet spell, meaning we'll be able to grow rice twice in a year. You know, rice is a weed crop, it's a grass crop, which can do well in the grasslands of Zambezi West. And my government and I would like to help our people in this aspect. The other challenge also that we have is staff in terms of agriculture extension officers, which, as you may be aware, in this year's budget, there has been an allocation to recruit more agriculture extension officers, which will be domiciled in the respective communities, so that we bring this service, the extension service, closer to the people. The other thing that I would like to talk about is the employment of teachers and health workers. We have got a big challenge in terms of accommodation and the dilapidated infrastructure in terms of schools and the clinics themselves, of which we are also lined up resources, and in view of the increment also in the CDF, we are going to work around the clock with the Robertness so that we build these infrastructures to enable our teachers and health workers have an enabling working environment in our constituents. Well, my way to the people, they have already seen some of the results which I have alluded to. The tractors are on the ground. One of the bridges, the suspension bridge, has already been constructed by the Zambia Army. in Chinyingi, I would just urge them to be patient. Rome was not built in a day, yeah. But we are really on the ground. Whatever that we are doing is for their own benefit, so that their livelihood can be bettered.
I was born in Mongu. I started my school here in Mongu, but I did a lot of primary school in other places because my father used to be a headmaster. So we traveled a lot when I was young. But this is my home. My hometown actually is down this, my home village, Katongo area, just down the road as you proceed, as you go to Senanga. So I did my secondary school here as well, just right there at Kambule. It's one of the famous schools here in Western Province, in the entire Zambia. It has produced many, many leaders, national leaders. So it's not a coincidence that I'm a member of parliament, because I come from Kambule as well, which is a very, very key school here in Mongu. Yeah, so after secondary school, I went to university. I studied water engineering, civil engineering, and I studied, I hold a BSc honors also in construction management, and I hold a master's also in in project management, majoring in project finance of capital projects. So I've worked mainly outside Zambia. I've stayed outside Zambia for the past 26 years, almost like Mandela in prison. So yes, so I decided to run for office as a member of parliament for Mongo Central, because I used to be UPND chair for chapter chair in South Africa. I was a chapter chair for the for last 6 years in South Africa. So I started entertaining the idea of running for office of member of parliament. So I came here to Mongo, and I thought I came back here in 2020. Luckily for me, I was adopted. Of course, after going through the primary elections, I was adopted by the UPND party to be the MP to be the candidate for Mongo Central. Mongo Central, it's a constituency within the town of Mongo. Mongo is a very beautiful town. As you can see, we are on top of the NAPSA building. You can see the city is growing at a very fast rate. It's a beautiful city. You have the nice plain there, as you can see across. We have the big Komboka ceremony happens in this city, in this town, from the royal village of Lealui, which is situated in the plain, to the royal village of Limulunga, which is on the coast on the other side, down there. So you can see, as you can see, it's a very beautiful city. I'm very proud to be a member of parliament for Mongo Central, because the people here are lovely. It's a city that was neglected in the past in terms of development. We have 16 wards, so it's quite a very huge constituency. It's one of the largest constituencies in Zambia. Being 16 wards, it's quite a large number. So even to visit these wards, it's quite a challenge, because some of these wards, as you can see across the other side of the plain, it's in Tapo. It's still part of Mongo Central. So it's quite a very huge ward. We share the borders with Kalabo Central. We share the borders with Nalolo on the other side, and Luena on the other side, and Nalikwanda on the other side. So it's quite a very, very large constituency. But I'm happy to be the member of parliament because with a vast area also it comes with a potential to make sure that we use the vast land for development. We need to, because you can do a lot of tourism activities across the plains. We can do a lot of agro business, agro processing business just here along the plains and also in here inland. So you can do a lot of fish farming in the plains. You can do a lot of cashew nut and mango growing, mango farms and cashew nut farms and all sorts, and sugar canes can grow in these plains. So with the vastness, it brings potential as well, potential for investors to invest in these areas. We want to see massive infrastructure in this city, in this town. As I said, you can see the beauty, the beautiful, you know, terrain and the beautiful land it has. So I always tell the people when I campaign that we want this to be a city. We don't want it to be just an ordinary town. It has the potential to be a great city. We want to see massive infrastructure in terms of roads. We want to see massive infrastructure in terms of hospitals. We want to see good schools being built here. We want to see this city to be clean. So we want anybody and everybody who lives in this city to, to, to be an example of the beauty of Zambia. We want it to be a tourist city. We want it to be an agro-processing city. As you can see, we have a lot of mangoes here. We have a lot of cashew nuts here. We have a lot of fruits here, bananas, oranges, name it. We want to see the investors come into this city and invest in these areas that I've mentioned. So that will create a lot of jobs for our people. So when you have a good government and you are clear about your policies, investors are naturally attracted to the area. And that's what we want to embark on with the new government, to market places like Mongu so that the people can come and invest here. It has the best climate, the best weather here. You can tell the weather today is very beautiful. It's not hot, it's not cold. It's about to rain, but it won't rain. And that's what we want people to come and enjoy here in Mongo. So we want to see development, development, and development here in Mongo in the next 5 years. Yes, so the main challenges is lack of employment. As you can see, there are very few big companies that operate here than government offices. So a lot of people leave the city, leave this town to go to Lusaka to look for jobs. We want to reverse that. We want people to do their school here, look for jobs here, get jobs here, and retire here. So if we can work on investment, on trying to create factories and industries, then we should be able to retain the majority of people. Of course, this is one Zambia, one nation. Everybody is free to leave one area and go and settle in another area. But the important thing is that people should leave out of choice, not because they are being forced to go to another area to look for a job, for something to do. So the biggest challenge is to create is jobs. We want to create employment for the people of Mongu. There's a lot of underdevelopment in terms of road infrastructure. A lot of the major roads here in Mongu, and also a lot of the roads into the townships, into the suburbs. They are in a very bad state. So the water also, there's a lot of water problems here in the city. More water is always rationed. So we have, as a government, there's a water project that's currently happening. So by end of September, I think the challenges of water will be a thing in the past year. So hospitals, we have one big hospital, Lewanika General Hospital. It was built in the 1920s. And you can imagine the state of the infrastructure there. It needs complete overhaul. In fact, what we need is a new modern hospital. in Mongu Central that can be saving the entire Western Province. We can make Lewanika Hospital as one of the feeder hospitals to a modern hospital that we can make. There's a district hospital also that was built, but it's in an incomplete state, so we can't say much about it to be called the hospital. We need a lot of work there to be done in order for it to be a hospital. So challenges in the health sector, there we have some wards as well. In the plains there, where there is the entire ward doesn't have a school. Can you imagine? In this time and era, it doesn't have a school, it doesn't have water, it doesn't have a clinic, and children are still growing up to be fishermen. 10 years, 11-year-old children have not been to school. So those are big challenges that the new government has to embark on. So with the increase in the CDF, we will utilize it very much to attend to those kind of problems. No, I just want to assure the people of Mongo Central that the next 5 years we'll see a lot of massive development. We'll continue doing these investments in the public sector, improving the number of schools, the number of clinics, the number of hospitals, increasing the road network, improving the road networks in the city. So the people of Mongo Central are very much in good hands, and we are going to do a lot together. So working together, we can do more.
Well, thank you so much for still being with us on Parliament Television. The House is still on the 20 minutes healthy break, and at the time business was interrupted. The House was considering question 68, which was asked by Mr. Philemon Twasa Kasenengwa, a member of Parliament, and was directed to the Minister of Health. He wanted to find out whether the government is aware of the critical shortage of reagents of laboratories at the University Teaching Hospital and Levi Manawas University Teaching Hospital, and the Member of Parliament was just about to ask a follow-up question from the Minister of Health.
We also expect Mr. Sampa of Matero constituency to ask the Minister of Transport and Logistics a question in 4 parts, whether the government is aware that on Sunday, 9th October 2022, a Zambia Airways flight from Dola to Lusaka had an emergency situation mid-air which led to extreme panic among passengers. If so, what the cause of the emergency was and what urgent measures are being taken to ensure the safety of passengers on Zambia Airways. So those are the 2 questions for oral answer, understanding order number 76 that the House is considering.
We also have a report and a report of the delegation to the AFP ICGRL joint election observation mission to Kenya, and the mover of this motion is Ms. Sefolo, urging the House to adopt the report of the delegation to the Forum of Parliaments of the International Conference of the Great Lakes Region Joint Election Observation Mission to Kenya. For now, we'll cross over to the floor of the House now.
Madam Speaker.
We don't have a quorum, no?
Good morning. Live pictures coming your way here in the chamber. Business will resume as soon as a quorum is formed. 1/3 of members of parliament need to be in the House in order for business to be considered on the floor of the House, as the House is currently considering question number 68, understanding order number 76, and this one is coming from Mr. Twasa of Kasenengwa, asking the Minister of Health whether the government is aware of the critical shortage of reagents at laboratories at the UTH and Levi Hospital, and what urgent measures are being taken to ensure availability of reagents at the hospitals.
I'll be able to share with you the details of the responses that the Acting Minister of Health gave during the time the question was being asked. And at the time business was interrupted, the area member of parliament for Kasenengwa was about to ask a follow-up question seeking clarity from the minister.
When business was suspended, the House was considering question for oral answer number 68 on the order paper, and the Honorable Member for Kasenengwa was about to ask a follow-up question. May the Honorable Member continue.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. With your indulgence, this time once allow me, Madam Speaker, to play in the lane of the members on your right, where before they answer any question, they refer to the past government. For this time once, Madam Speaker, I'm going to do that. In this ministry that we are talking about now, we had Dr. Chituo. We never saw shortages of drugs. Never. I was not in politics. We had Dr. Chitaruchi Rufia. I was not in politics. None of the members on your left will confirm knowing Twasa in the corridors of politics as late as the time when Dr. Chirufia was minister. But today, shortages of drugs, Madam Speaker, is the talk of the day. My question is, why do we have a persistent shortage of drugs in the hospitals? And in this case, we are talking about the University Teaching Hospital, biggest health institution in the country. Levi Manawasa University Teaching Hospital, biggest health institution in the country. Why do we have persistent shortages of drugs? And we are always firefighting, putting the lives of Zambians in danger. There were no reagents. Why? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Let's not divert or move away from the question. Your question is talking about critical shortage of reagents. However, I don't know whether the acting Honorable Minister of Health will say something on the drugs, but the question is on the reagents. The acting Honorable Minister of Health.
Madam Speaker, I thank you, and I thank the Honorable Member, Mr. Philemon Twasa, Member for Kasanengwa, for the follow-up question delivered in a most passionate way. It shows his concern for the welfare of our citizens. First of all, dealing with the issue of reagents in the labs at Levi Manawasa and also at UTH. This shortage of these reagents at the two institutions, and indeed in other public health facilities, is attributed to a combination of factors, including but not limited to the following. First of all, we now have high disease burden of both communicable and non-communicable diseases. Also, we have issues of underfunding. I think he's mentioning history, he's talking about certain previous ministers of health, but I can remind him and remind the House that funding until 2021 was in the order of 1.4 billion kwacha, against a total drug budget of 5.2 billion kwacha. This created, Madam Speaker, a deficit of 3.8 billion kwacha. So I don't see, don't agree with him then that there was no shortage then. Because with this massive deficit, how possible was it that there was no shortage? In addition to these problems, because we are talking about lack of reagents, we also have a huge debt burden, which currently stands at 2.2 billion kwacha, which was accumulated over the past years. And this has become unbearable, Madam Speaker. As a result, most suppliers could no longer supply medicines and medical supplies. They needed to be unlocked through debt servicing. This situation is what led to the current stockouts in public institutions. Part of the way going forward for the new Dawn administration on this debt burden, especially local debt burden, is we have a plan which has been explained very adequately by the Honorable Minister of Finance, that we begin the process of dismantling local debt, which over a period of time will clear this particular problem. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Chiruvi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The people of Chiluvi alive to the fact that the reagents that we are talking about play an important role in diagnosis of different ailments, meaning that the ailments that are concentrated especially on the two national referral hospitals mentioned in the question come from different areas of the country, meaning that diagnosis linked to curative as well as preventive of such ailments. I want to find out whether government, with this lack of reagents for some time, have taken stock of what they have contributed to morbidity as well as mortality rates, whether they have taken stock of the morbidity and the mortality rates resulting out of lack of reagents.
The Acting Minister of Health.
Madam Speaker, I thank you for this opportunity, and also Honorable Mulenga Francis Fulbe for the follow-up questions. Now, when he talks about morbidity as a lack of reagents, it's quite clearly that is a separate question because it requires proper analysis of figures of those that have died and so on. So if he wishes that to be tackled, I think he must raise a different question. This question deals with a shortage in these two institutions. And in my answer given, we have given two scenarios. The first one is an immediate scenario where we have allocated 1 million to each of the two institutions to deal with the reagents. The second scenario is where adjudication on the bids for the supply, this is long term now, is already in process. So this matter will be attended to. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Kasenengwa.
Madam Speaker, I think he has just responded to what I wanted to ask.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Mufulira.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Madam Speaker, before I ask, allow me just to say this to the Acting Minister of Health through you, that when members of Parliament persistently ask about this question of shortage of drugs, please understand that we are representing constituencies and we are actually feeling the effect of the lack of drugs in so many ways, Madam Speaker. One, some of the constituents actually think that as an MP, you can even just use your title to drive to Zamsa and pick the drugs and deliver to the hospitals. That is true. Secondly, those prescriptions that the patients are coming out from the hospitals, they are actually coming to us members of parliament now to pay for them to buy those drugs. And the third category, Honorable Madam Speaker, which is even more annoyed, are those that are actually contributing through NIMA. They are having their monthly deductions, but they go to the hospitals, there's no service. So this is a very big story, and please understand when we raise these complaints. Madam Speaker, when I was sitting, my colleague here, one of your members, was actually telling me the experience they had yesterday at UTH.
Is it possible you can go straight to your question, because there seem to be a lot of examples? So
actually, now I'm going to the question, because
please go straight to the question.
Your member was telling me about his experience at UTH yesterday. He was well attended to by the doctor, sent to the lab, and he could not be attended to because there were no reagents. Instead, he was pointed to a laboratory just next to the UTH lab, within the premises. And that lab, we are all aware, it's a private laboratory. And he was quickly attended to by that private laboratory. My question now is it in order, first of all, to even entertain that private lab to exist within the government institution of UTH? And isn't that also contributing, because they are doing business? How sure will we be that genuinely there are no reagents, instead they are promoting the private business that is existing just next door to the government lab? That's my question, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
The Acting Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the Honorable Member for Mufulira, Honorable Gordon Mwila. His concern is a concern for all of us, and I think for both sides of this House, because the shortages that are being reported are not being reported just in one particular area. I think, to be honest, they're being reported throughout the country. The new Dawn administration will not bury its head in the sand when we have issues like this that affect our population. And it's therefore necessary for our citizens to understand and help us come to the root cause of these shortages. I explained that until 2021, the budget allocation was in the order of 1.4 billion kwacha. And there was those shortages. But in the 2022 budget, this went up to 2.8 billion, from 1.4 billion. And subsequently, we had actually an extra 400,000, which made for the whole year 3.2 billion kwacha, which is favorably comparable to the 1.4 billion in previous years. So there is more funding into the health facilities. This is not just specific to reagents, but we're talking about the whole medicines and so on. And in fact, if you care to look at what is being proposed in the budget for 2023, this figure is going up even further to 4.6 billion kwacha. So the question we must ask ourselves is, why do we have these persistent shortages or perception of shortages throughout the country, when in actual fact the funding to the institution, to the health institution, is going up? And that's why the whole country, including members of this House, must play an active part in ensuring that we get to the root cause of these issues. One of the suggestions or the thing that the Honorable Member from Mufulira has brought is where we have public institutions with no medicines and reagents and so on. And next door, you have a private one that has these items. And it's not just with reagents. Even sometimes we get people reporting that such a clinic has no medicines, but just next door there is a small chemist that is selling these things. We have to find out where those are getting those. There is also an issue of medicines maybe even leaving our borders, which should be used here in the country. So the ministry is taking measures in addition to what I've explained to ensure that we seal all the loopholes. The normal supply chain for medicines and reagents in this country is we hold 12-month stocking, which is 6 months held here at Central, here in Osaka, and for 2 months within the provinces, and for 4 months at the health institutions themselves. Okay. Now, what we have seen also is that where we have shortages and we have to buy from outside, the international supply chains right now are in the order of 9 months. If you press them, it comes down to 6 months. So the ministry is working very hard with suppliers to ensure that the international supply chains, the lead times for the delivery of these medicines can be reduced, if possible, to 3 months. But we do understand it's a problem, it's affecting all our citizens regardless of where they are. And the ministry is working flat out to ensure that these matters can be resolved. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Solwezi East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Listening to the Minister, it's actually worrying if we are doing well in the medical fraternity or not. I look at NIMA, whose mandate is actually to give access to quality health and also access to the state-of-the-art equipment, including drugs that we are talking about in hospitals. One may ask a question, Madam Speaker, whether NIMA is really doing us good, because a lot of people are paying. We need probably to know how much has been contributed and how much has been spent in terms of the drugs and so on. Otherwise, there's a lot of questions surrounding NIMA. Maybe we need a review of its mandate on the floor of this House, Madam Speaker. But coming to my question, Dr. Karela here would believe and actually accept that laboratories, medical laboratories, are very, very critical component in disease diagnosis, treatment, and prevention. Whatever it has to take as a nation, we need to pay so much attention to laboratories in these hospitals, especially the referral hospitals that we're talking about. Without proper laboratories, we expect over-medicalization, spending a lot of medicine on nothing really that is good. For example, Madam Speaker, the Honorable Minister may be sick, have a headache. Syndromically, we just say, okay, give him Panadol, Brustan, and so on to relieve the pain. But that is not helpful. But diagnosis, which has to be done through the laboratories, Madam Speaker, is very critical. My question is, Honorable Minister, having worked in these medical facilities, I know what it is in those laboratories. Do we really have enough resources to completely dedicate to these laboratories in terms of reagents so that we're able to effectively treat, effectively prevent, and effectively manage the disease and patient outcome? Do we really have that? Because if it is there, we have to spend whatever it has to take, we have to spend in regard to laboratories. Otherwise, we are shooting ourselves and we'll never win as far as diseases are concerned. Madam Speaker, I need your serious, just
the acting
not really
minister,
ruling. Thank you.
The acting Minister of Health.
Thank you very much. I think the first is to agree with the sentiments expressed by Dr. Katakwe, the Honorable Member for Solwezi East. Indeed, it's recognized that proper diagnosis requires functioning labs, laboratories, and that is why I've said the ministry is taking measures, first of all, to ensure that the two institutions have the reagents to the tune of the amounts that I've talked about. And going forward, an evaluation of the bids so that the longer supply items can be facilitated. We agree. I mean, it's difficult for a doctor to tell you what exactly is affecting you based on the physical symptoms. They need to go and find out what is actually happening in your body, and that's why we require these laboratories. If it's leukemia, what type of leukemia is it? If it's diarrhea, what sort? Is it cholera or something worse? So the ministry has to work, and it will work to ensure that we get on top of these matters. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable members, just to remind you that the Honorable Madam Speaker, I think it was 2 weeks ago, or 1 week ago, had directed the Committee on Health to do an assessment or to find out what is pertaining on the ground with this problem of drugs and reagents. So a report will be brought to the House where you'll be given an opportunity to even debate so that we know exactly what is pertaining on the ground and what are the causes and how it will be sorted out. So I don't think we should go any further because we are going to have another time when we are supposed to discuss this very big problem that is facing our country, the health facilities. We are now going to move on to the next question. The Honorable Member for Matero.
Question 69, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Transport and Logistics.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The Honourable Member of Parliament for Matero asks a three-part question. In A, whether the government is aware that on Sunday, 9th October 2022, a Zambia Airways flight from Ndola to Lusaka had an emergency situation mid-air, which led to extreme panic among the passengers. In B, if so, what the cause of the emergency was. And lastly, Madam Speaker, in Part C, what urgent measures are being taken to ensure the safety of passengers on the Zambia Airways flights countrywide. In response, Madam Speaker, to those questions, in Part A, yes, the government is aware that on 9th October 2022, there was an aircraft incident mid-air on Zambia Airways flight ZN411 from Ndola to Lusaka. The aircraft incident was that there was loss of cabin pressure mid-air at 22,000 feet. In Part B, Madam Speaker, the emergency was caused by the loss of cabin pressure. The details of the aircraft incident were as follows. Zambia Airways flight ZN411 departed from Simon Mwansaka Pwepo International Airport in Ndola at 17:45 hours on Sunday, 9th October 2022, after being cleared by air traffic control onto Lusaka. After takeoff, Madam Speaker, the aircraft climbed to 22,000 feet above sea level without incident. About 5 minutes before commencement of descent into Lusaka, the pilot in command noticed that the cabin pressure warning light had illuminated with master warning lights and an audio signal. The crew immediately donned their oxygen masks and informed the cabin crew and passengers via the public address system
to don cabin oxygen masks, which had automatically deployed. The pilot in command called Lusaka Radar Control and declared an emergency. The aircraft descended to 10,000 feet above sea level, at which level all passengers were able to breathe normally. Cabin crew reported that all passengers were in good condition and stable. The aircraft landed safely at KKIA at 1845 hours and was escorted to the apron by rescue fire services and an ambulance. All the passengers disembarked safely. There were neither injuries nor fatalities. Madam Speaker, the Civil Aviation Authority, in collaboration with the Aircraft Accidents Investigation Board, are doing a more thorough and detailed investigation on the loss of cabin pressure in order to pave way for effective corrective and preventive action. Lastly, Madam Speaker, in Part C, the Zambia Airways technical team checked the aircraft, and later the Zambia Civil Aviation Authority inspectors also inspected the aircraft. The diagnosis outlined that the problem was the cabin pressure controller on the aircraft, serial number 0714. The technical team rectified the fault by changing the cabin pressure controller, serial number 0578, and conducted 3 successful functional and operational checks before releasing the aircraft into operation. The process of replacement and the consecutive functional checks were witnessed and inspected by the Zambia Civil Aviation inspectors. Madam Speaker, I wish to take this opportunity to thank the brave and professional response by the pilots of the subject flight, which prevented the incident from becoming an accident. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. Supplementary questions? The Honorable Member for Matero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Honorable Minister. Thank you for your detailed response. Minister, in America, there is what they call the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, that ensures security of passengers in the plane. Whenever there's an incident in the air, in the plane, be it just a passenger, drunk passenger harassing an air hostess, within hours they hold a press conference to alert the citizen what transpired. Who are the equivalent in Zambia? We hear about RATSA. RATSA comes in and tells the nation whatever happens on the road. But in the air, we don't know they are quiet, they are the statement you've given in here is solid, but we should have heard it on Monday. Who are they? Why are they so quiet? Why are they always in Ndwi? To borrow my brother's word.
What is Ndwi?
Idle, quiet. Until we ask them, they don't say anything about what transpires in the airspace of Zambia. I thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Transport and Logistics.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the Honorable Member for Matero for that follow-up question. Madam Speaker, suffice to say that the Honorable Member, who boasts of having been on over 100 flights, I'm sure both local and international, will agree with me that prior to any takeoff, the stewardess of any aircraft does run us through the safety issues that we need to be aware of on those aircrafts. As you will fully agree with me, Honorable Member, aircrafts do not fly by magic, but by science. And one of the announcements which are made is that in the unlikely event of cabin pressure loss, oxygen masks will deploy. This is a safety measure put in place to ensure the safety of all passengers. Madam Speaker, rather than lament about this minor incident, which posed no threat to life, what we should be saying, Madam Speaker, is that we are glad that in the Zambian airspace, where operating equipment, where once an incident occurs, yes, indeed, as the safety procedures prescribe, oxygen masks did deploy, and that passengers were accordingly guided on how to survive this near miss. This, Madam Speaker, was professionally done by the crew. Further than just deploying oxygen masks, the pilots did follow international standard procedure to actually bring the aircraft to a level where you can breathe normally without the use of oxygen masks. And this was at 10,000 feet. Madam Speaker, we do have a competent civil aviation authority that looks into these incidences. And let me throw caution to honorable members, particularly those that are on social media, to desist from this propensity, the insatiable appetite to gain numbers on our Facebook pages may cause unnecessary alarm. Madam Speaker, this is what had transpired, and we are glad that oxygen masks did deploy and that all our fellow citizens were actually safely brought to the ground. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
The Honorable Member for Luena.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. Honorable Minister, prior to the launch of the Zambia Airways back into operation, there were allegations that the previous regime had signed a contract for very old aircraft to be used by Zambia Airways. So my question is, how old is this particular aircraft on which this sort of insignificant safety incident occurred? And if possible, what type of an aircraft is it?
The Honorable Minister of Transport and Logistics.
Madam Speaker, allow me to start by saying thank you to the honorable member for that question, and also to say that, first of all, the issues that we must preoccupy ourselves is whether or not what was brought to the Zambia Airways deal was indeed a deal that covered airworthy aircraft. And the answer is definitely in the affirmative. What Zambia Airways is operating are airworthy aircrafts that are not ancient. I think that what the honorable members must be able to preoccupy themselves with is that the incident in question is one that perhaps did not affect, for instance, the performance of the engines, whose results, minus having a nearby, safety landing area, may result in a much more catastrophic incident. I think that the aircrafts in question have performed exceptionally well, and that the only reason why, like I earlier alluded to, why we are constantly reminded of possibilities that may occur whilst flying is that, yes, these things are machines, and machines may tend to fail. In this particular case, what we had was that in order for members to appreciate, the oxygen levels beyond 10,000 feet are indeed depleted. And that what aircrafts do is that through their compression system, part of their compression system obviously goes to the major component of operating an aircraft, which is propulsion, but that also part of that air must go to artificially create an environment whilst at 22,000 feet as though you were at 8,000 feet. And this is controlled by a unit, the cabin pressure controller unit, which is the unit that had failed. This is a unit which is replaceable, Madam Speaker, and it has since been replaced. This is a unit which allows for valves to open and close in order to maintain the sort of cabin pressure which allows us to fly under good conditions. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
The Honorable Member for Matero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Honorable Minister. The 100 flights were accumulated on duty at Parliament and in government last 10 years, which the Minister has already surpassed in his 1 year as Minister of Transport, traveling on duty. Madam Speaker, my question, my last one, is just a reassurance from the Minister to the people of Matero. Remember, all the flights from Ndora make a turn there at Tiro Stadium and from South Africa. And the people of Munali and Mandevu and Kanyama. And also Chongwe when the planes are taking off. And also Ndola Central when planes are landing in Ndola. That they are safe from that Zambia Airways flight. And any other flights, that they are safe in their airspace. I thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Transport and Logistics.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to the Honourable Member for that question. Indeed, Madam Speaker, I may happen to have flown well over 100 flights, but this has not happened whilst as Minister of Transport. I think flying is one of my passions, Honourable Member. I've been to many, many parts of the world. Further, Madam Speaker, just to say that, yes, indeed, Zambia is a member of the International Civil Aviation Organization, a global body which monitors operation of civil aviation. And I must hasten to mention, this is an organization to where I recently visited at their 41st conference in Montreal, Canada. We are a respected member because we strive to adhere to the international best practices of operating civil aviation. And I want to take this opportunity to reassure members of this august House, and indeed members of the public out there, that being a responsible government, this incident did receive the necessary attention that it deserved to ensure that there was compliance, that safety procedures had been followed, that inspections had been done. That is the only way I have allowed Zambia Airways to continue flying. I will not allow any major incident to happen, not under my watch. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Sinazongwe.
Madam Speaker, thank you so much for the opportunity given. Madam Speaker, I happen to have been a passenger, on the same plane, and whatever happened, it happened. Now, my source of concern and other passengers was when we landed and came out of the plane, we expected Zambia Airways to have a word to us, at least say something. We just walked normally as if nothing had happened. Now, what I want to find out from the minister is that the best way of treating customers who were in a near miss? I thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Transport and Logistics.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to the Honourable Member. I must add that due care had been taken to some of your fellow passengers who may have expressed concern about the state of their health and wanted to ensure that indeed they had not been adversely affected. Zambia Airways did take it upon themselves to actually move these particular passengers to Forest Park for health checks. And I'm proud and pleased to inform you that all that were on board were released as having had a clean bill of health. Suffice to say, Madam Speaker, that perhaps the Honourable Member, as he had earlier intimated to me in our private conversations, really did not feel anything with the incident, that he hardly noticed the incident at all, because he is quite a healthy gentleman. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
The Honorable Member for Chinsali.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, I would like to commend the captain for the same flight and his team who managed to ensure that the plane landed safely and we didn't have any fatalities. Madam Speaker, this incident where the cabin pressure controller malfunctioned has resulted in a situation where people are afraid to get on Zambian Airways. They fear because they think that something bad might happen to them. So I also see that Zambian Airways is going to be affected in terms of competition with the other airlines because it is in competition. So we expect that Zambian Airways is going to lose customers based on that. My question to the Honorable Minister is that what is the government going to do, or what is it that Zambian Airways is going to do to ensure that it remains in business and it competes effectively with the other competitors who have not had such situations in our country? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Transport and Logistics.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to the honorable member for a very good observation indeed. And this is why I earlier did speak to the entire membership of this August House that let us be responsible citizens. Let us not rush to social media and cause unnecessary alarm. Honorable members must realize that we are duty bound, that whenever you hear of such incidences, take time to do a bit of research into how problematic this situation could have been. Let us desist from the insensitive use of social media because it fuels unnecessary speculation. As Minister of Transport and Logistics, I have just reassured the nation through this August House that there is absolutely nothing untoward with what happened to Zambia, and not Zambian Airways. It's actually Zambia Airways. Nothing untoward. I will be the first one to jump on that aircraft this evening as I go to my constituency, as a show of reassurance that there's absolutely nothing to be scared of. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. We are behind time. We move on to the next item on the order paper, notice of motion. The Honorable Member for Mwandi.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this House do adopt the report of the Zambian delegation to the International Conference of the Great Lakes Region and the Forum of Parliaments of the International Conference of the Great Lakes Region Joint Election Observation Mission in Kenya from the 1st to the 12th of August 2022.
Is the motion seconded?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Seconded by the Honorable Member for Bangweulu. The question is that this House do adopt the report of the delegation to the Forum of Parliaments of the International Conference of the Great Lakes Region Joint Election Observation Mission to Kenya from 1st to 12th August 2022 for the second session of the 13th National Assembly laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 21st September 2022. Any debate? The Honorable Member for Mwandi.
Madam Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order number 146 of the National Assembly Standing Orders 2021, I rise to give a statement on Zambia's participation in the Forum of Parliaments of the International Conference of the Great Lakes Region Joint Election Observation Mission to Kenya, conducted from the 1st to the 12th of August 2022. Madam Speaker, Zambia was represented by myself as the Vice Chairperson of the Committee of Democracy and Good Governance and by Mr. Anthony Kasandwe, MP, as member of the Committee of Humanitarian and Social Issues. Madam Speaker, for the information of the House, the Forum of the Parliaments of ICGLR was established on the 4th of December 2008 in Kigali, the Kigali of the Republic of Rwanda, with the purpose of promoting, keeping, and reinforcing peace and security in the Great Lakes region, as expressed by the heads of state and the government in the Security, Stability, and Development Pact of the Great Lakes region, which was signed on the 15th of December 2006 in Nairobi, Republic of Kenya, and came into force on the 21st of June 2008. The speakers of the parliaments of the member states of the Great Lakes region, mandated by their respective parliaments, stressed the point that democratically elected parliaments could play a major role in promoting the peace, security, stability, and mutual understanding and friendship among the African people, as well as solidarity, brotherhood, and good neighborliness among the states of the region. Therefore, the major role of the forum is to make parliamentary contribution to peace by putting in place mechanisms for better implementation of the pact, protocols and programs of action outlined in the pact. Madam Speaker, the observation was preceded by a two-day training workshop during which participants were taken through the process of election observation, particularly as it differed from election monitoring. Observers learned that whereas in election monitoring there was room for interfering in the process when need arose, this was not permissible in election observation. The observers were informed that the ICGLR EOM would observe the 9th of August 2022 general election within the spirit of the letter of the Durban Declaration on the principles governing democratic elections in Africa, as adopted by the Assembly of the Heads of State and Government of the African Union in July 2002. The African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance, which came into force on the 15th of February 2012, the ICGLR Democracy and Good Governance Protocol, Chapter 2204. The guidelines of the Election Observer Mission, as well as the legal framework governing the conduct of elections in the Republic of Kenya. In response to the invitation by the government of the Republic of Kenya, the ICGLR deployed a short-term election observation mission to the general election held on the 9th of August 2022. There were 86 observers from 11 member states, namely the Republic of Angola, the Republic of Burundi, the Central African Republic, the Republic of Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Republic of Rwanda, the Republic of South Sudan, the Republic of Sudan, the United Republic of Tanzania, the Republic of Uganda, the Republic of Zambia, and the Republic of Angola is the chair of the ICGLR, and Zambia is the vice chair. These were deployed in the following counties: Kisumu, Kiambu, Mombasa, Nairobi, Eldoret, across 60 polling centers. You may wish to note, Madam Speaker, that the parliamentary declaration met and integrated with other Zambian observers, such as the Electoral Commission of Zambia, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and International Cooperation, and were collectively led by the former Republican Vice President, Mr. Enoch Kavindele, who had been sent as an adversary of the government. On the 11th of August 2022, the head of the mission, His Excellency Ambassador Ishmael Abra Martins, issued an interim statement, some of whose highlights I will now present. The mission noted that the election campaign was generally peaceful and issue-based and was mainly in accordance with the Republican Constitution and the Electoral Act, Chapter number 24 of 2011. Further, it was noted that the election complied with national, regional, and international standards, including the ICGLR Protocol on the Democracy and Good Governance. While it was established that the elections were peaceful and orderly, the mission noted that the postponement of elections for governor candidates in Kakamega County and Mombasa County, the postponement of the National Assembly candidates for Kacheliba and Pocket South constituencies was also noted. The statement also noted that there were 46,233 polling stations, and the total number of voters registered was 22,120,458. The head of the mission noted that Kenya was among the first African nations to allow for 10,444 diaspora voters and 7,483 prisoners. This was remarkable, and other member states were called upon to emulate the Great Republic. The mission was also delighted to note that the most polling stations observed had easy access, especially to people living with disabilities and elderly voters. Observers, including party agents, were granted access to polling stations before opening time and were able to perform their duties without interference or restrictions. Polling staff demonstrated a good knowledge of the opening procedures. The mission noted that strategic election materials were available and in sufficient quantities throughout the day. Further, the mission noted that the general atmosphere, mood, and the environment outside all polling stations and the polling stations visited by the mission were peaceful and quiet. Most polling stations were located in schools close to the residence of voters. They were laid out in a manner that allowed for easy flow of voters. Assistance was provided to voters according to the procedures by the presiding officer or a relative accompanying the voter who needed assistance. The polling staff demonstrated professionalism in the management of the voting, while maintaining a normal interaction with political parties, domestic and international observers. The mission noted that no campaign activities or materials were observed within the polling station's vicinity. The mission also noted that the identification of voters using the Kenya Integrated Election Information Management System kits worked satisfactorily in the most cases. However, when it failed, an alternative method of identification was readily available. The mission observed the closing of 15 polling stations and noted that the process was peaceful, orderly, efficient, and conducted in a transparent manner, free of any irregularities. Polling officials demonstrated adequate knowledge of polling procedures, indicating sufficient training conducted by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Most of the polling stations closed on time, and where there were voters in the queue at the time of the polls, where there were voters in queue at the close of the polls, they were allowed to vote. Procedures relating to emptying of the ballot boxes, reconciliation of the used and unused ballots, and ballot paper sorting were adhered to and uniformly and consistent applied at all polling stations visited, in the presence of political parties, independent candidates, agents, and observers. In view of the foregoing,
Wind up your debate,
yes,
Honorable
Madam
Member.
Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, I would like to thank you, Madam Speaker, for according us an opportunity to be part of the Kenyan Election Observation Mission 2022. Madam Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you. Does the seconder wish to speak now or later?
Now, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Banguru.
Thank you for the opportunity to second the motion that has been ably moved by the Member of Parliament for Mwandi. And Madam Speaker, in seconding the motion moved by the delegation leader, let me indicate from the onset that Zambia is currently the Vice Chair of the Committee on Democracy and Good Governance, and as well the Committee on Humanitarian and Social Issues, to which Honorable Sefulo and myself belong respectively. We did manage to observe elections for 15 days, Madam Speaker. We observed the before, the during, and the after, and my colleague and myself were actually given the opportunity to observe 5 constituencies each in Mombasa County. And there are lessons that we have learned, Madam Speaker. For the Kenyan situation, elections campaign stops 2 days before the actual day of elections. That means 48 hours. That gives people an opportunity to retreat, to prepare, and to avoid any conflict. 2 days is given. So for us, we've learned that as a big lesson. They also use what is called integrated election information management system kits. These are the bio kits that have information for all the registered voters. And few days before elections, the names of all the registered voters are pasted at each and polling station for the would-be voters to verify their names 5 days before elections is undertaken. And in the event that the voter's card is lost at the polling day, they use the gadgets, okay, to verify. They either use a thumb or a chin to make sure that you are a voter. And they also allow voters' registration to take place during the voting day. In case there were those people who had no opportunity to register as voters, they are given an opportunity during the voters' day to register as voters. And then for the Zambian system, I think we need to learn some of these practices, better practices, and I'm happy that the Electoral Commission of Zambia was part of the observation mission. And the other point that I can talk about, it is coordination. When we left with Honorable Sefulo, we had no information that other people or other groupings from Zambia were part of the same observation mission. We met the Electoral Commission, we met the former Vice President, Honorable Kavindele. And you know, it was very embarrassing that Honorable Sefulo, as a Vice Chair, was sitting in front to chair a meeting while the former Vice President was seated in the crowd. So it was just out of wisdom to cede their position and to allow the former president to manage that meeting. So what we are encouraging the executive to do, and Parliament and other institutions, when we are going to engage in these international engagements, it's important as a nation we prepare and we coordinate together so that we don't experience what we experienced with our former Republican Vice President. Madam Speaker, with these few words, I move to second the motion.
Thank you. Any further debate? Any further debate? Honorable members. I see none. The honorable member from Bawala.
Madam Speaker, for this wonderful report of the ICGLR observation mission from our National Assembly. This is a wonderful report that has been brought by our colleagues, Honorable Member for Mandi and the Seconder, which is showing entrenchment of democracy and human rights in Africa, that we are advancing these freedoms and the like. Honorable Madam Speaker, it is actually very encouraging that Zambia is played this role in the observer mission, especially that in the recent past we had those reports of Zambia and the Zambian government being accused of destabilizing the Great Lakes region in Rwanda, where a general there who was being tried complained about the Zambian government being part and parcel of the destabilization there. It is therefore now encouraging that under the new Dawn government, we are not hearing or seeing any of this. Instead, what we are seeing is an excellent process of learning from these missions and being able to demonstrate and learn more on democracy and how we can improve our institutions internally as well as across the region. Madam Speaker, I support some of the observations in terms of coordination and indeed the conduction of elections, which we need to continue to pick lessons and continue to take forward. With these remarks, Madam Speaker, I support the report. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Mwandi wind-up debate.
Madam Speaker, I would love to thank the seconder of the motion and the only honorable who had time to read, I think, our report and has debated on it. We are very grateful. And as we've indicated, we've learned so many lessons as ICGR from Kenya on how they are progressing in doing their elections. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I submit.
Thank you. I put the question. The question is that this House do adopt the report of the delegation to the Forum of Parliaments of the International Conference of the Great Lakes Region Joint Election Observation Mission to Kenya from 1st to 12th August 2022 for the second session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 21st September 2022. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary say no. The ayes have it and the question is resolved in the affirmative. The clerk will now read the order of the day.
Supply motion of 30th September, resumption of debate.
When business was interrupted yesterday, Thursday, 13th October 2022, the House was considering the motion moved by the Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning that the House do now resolve into Committee of Supply on the estimates of revenue and expenditure for the year 1st January 2023 to 31st December 2023, together with the annual borrowing plan presented to the National Assembly in September 2022, and the Honorable Member for Kaumbwe was debating. May the Honorable Member continue.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. In conclusion, the budget is well crafted with little or no plagiarism, and we're looking forward for engagement with the creditors so that the debt can be restructured, because it depends on the restructuring of the debt for our performance of the budget. I thank you so much.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Mapatizia.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving the people of Mapatizia an opportunity to debate the 2023 budget. Madam Speaker, the 2023 budget, with its theme stimulating economic growth for improved livelihood, has created a lot of hope among Zambians, and more so among the people of Mapatizia. I'll start with the CDF, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the CDF remains the new Dawn government's decentralization initiative, the biggest decentralization initiative. We have seen CDF being increased from 1.6 to 25.7 and now to 28.3, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is a motivation. This is creating hope to the Zambian people at large. It cuts across the board. Everyone gets this kind of money at every level in the constituency. We have got 156 constituencies, Madam Speaker. It doesn't matter where one is, everyone is getting this amount of money. We all know what the CDF has done, how it has positively changed people's lives, from construction of schools, empowering women and youth, empowering youth in forms of skills, And people are so hopeful because it's not everyone who could get a place in these universities and higher institutions of learning. As opposed to the past, Madam Speaker, it's not going to be overemphasized. We are all aware what used to happen. All the financial decisions were made as central government. Having decentralized the funds, the CDF funds, the locals, the common man now can participate, Madam Speaker, in the decision-making process of the development of this country through the CDF. Therefore, Madam Speaker, with another increment to 28.3 million, this budget really is a motivation. This budget is really speaking to the people of Zambia. This is a dream come true. And the new Dawn government is right. Bali is fixing it. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. On the CDF, coming to agriculture. Agriculture is one of actually the major employer in this country because we are all farmers. You don't need to do anything to be a farmer. We have seen Zambia has got a lot of land, Madam Speaker, arable land, which is not even being utilized. If today one decides to go farming, they can still do it without much struggle because we all have a piece of land where we come from traditionally, and it's all available. But the only problem was, speaking of my place, Mapatisia, we are a rural constituency, a ranching community. There were no extension officers. No extension officer services. In a stretch of 100 kilometers, Madam Speaker, probably you will find one. And if that one has not relocated to town, therefore you find that ranching became a problem. Vaccinations were done late, and people took advantage. Those few took advantage, and they started going in around the farmers, exploiting them to charge because there were no agriculture extension officers. We saw the New Dawn government employing about 256 in the past year. And this budget is talking about recruiting more extension officers. Therefore, creating hope among Zambians, especially the farmers, which is the main livelihood of the people of Zambia. Madam Speaker, the same budget, 2023 budget, is talking about creating more farm blocks. Madam Speaker, that is very much welcome. Farming blocks is the way to go. That's how other countries are doing it. And the New Dawn government in this 2023 budget is saying that they are going to revive, they are going to create new farming blocks, which are later going to provide employment. There's a lot of land, like I earlier alluded to, which is just idling. More farming blocks. In Mapatisia, I hope the government is also going to consider, we have got a lot of land by the Zambezi River Basin. We need another farming block. Farming blocks which are being financed. We have seen some created, but they have not been working because they were not financed. Finances are needed. It's the main resource you need to start any business, Madam Speaker. But if you create something and you have no business financing it, then it is as well, you don't do it. We are seeing this 2023 budget addressing the issue of financing farming blocks, which is going to later address the issue of employment at all levels. Madam Speaker, the issue of farming blocks is very much welcome to the Zambian people. Those who already own farming blocks are already preparing. Therefore, we are going to see a lot of food production. We are going to see a lot of employment. We are going to see a lot of people engaging into farming. And subsequently, even in exporting food and beef to other countries like Botswana is doing it, Madam Speaker. It's through these farming blocks. Talking about farming blocks, Madam Speaker, the CDF is giving empowerment to the women. But some of the women who would like to pursue the farming are in town. They don't have land. With these farming blocks, some of the companies as well, small companies, farming is a business. People would like to engage in farming as a business. With these finance farming blocks, the finances are ready. The 2023 budget is taking care of it. Again, the New Dawn government is doing it, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Madam Speaker, I'll draw much on agriculture because I know that agriculture is our livelihood because it provides food security, Madam Speaker. The government is going to restructure the FISIP program to a comprehensive agriculture support program. Of course, we know FISIP was done at a very low level. Actually, in the recent past, we saw people, there was no equity in the FISIP program. People were getting 3 bags. My constituency was getting 3 bags. A farmer was getting 3 bags. Later on, we saw the new Dawn government providing equity. Everyone was getting 6 bags across. Now, they are restructuring it, Madam Speaker, and they are even providing value addition to the product. And also even to, they are also advancing it even to finance it further. Madam Speaker, what more can one ask for in the farming industry? This government is driving this country in the right direction, Madam Speaker. Zambia is headed to become one of Africa's main breadbaskets, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much to the new Dawn government and the 2023 budget. In the mining sector, Madam Speaker, we know that mining is a major economic driver of this country. This country is dependent on copper, Madam Speaker, but we are aware that Zambia is also rich in other mineral resources. My constituents, for one.
Order, honorable member, your time is up.
Oh.
There's a point of order raised by the honorable member for Chiruvi. What is your point of order, honorable member for Chiruvi?
It has nothing to do with my sister who has debated very well. My point of order is pursuant to 210. That's clause 1, 2, and 3. Madam Speaker, of late we have been struggling with the issue of column. And apart from that, we have had circulars to that effect, which have been targeted at different members of parliament to encourage good attendance. And some of the conditions, which I would declare have been a beneficiary of those permissions through the government chief whip, are that when you are attending to business in the constituency, among them, the issue of CDF, you can be given permission. And I think it does not include maybe things like selling, motorbikes to government and so forth as one of the reasons you can stay away from parliament. Having said that, I would like to point specifically whether some of the members, some of the members are in order. I was screening those that we miss. And I think I found that one case is outstanding, that of Honorable Chawinga. It is very much outstanding because I've seen that from last year to this day, he has unattended 4 times. One, on when the president was giving the speech, and the other one, when there was a budget. I want to know whether these conditions for parliament have the special arrangement for some members and do not apply to all of us. So I wanted to find out the status on that particular member, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, honorable member. Unfortunately, I missed. Did you say the honorable member for Chawinga or what? Mafinga.
Yes.
Okay. What we are going to do, honorable member, since that is now part of administration, it will be directed to the clerks at the table to go through the records. As at now, no ruling can be made. We move on. The honorable member for Chasefu.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving the good people of Chasefu to add a word on the motion of our budget, which was presented to this House by the Honorable Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, today, I will demonstrate at the end that I've read the budget. But today, I want to narrow to 1 or 2 important and salient matters that this nation should appreciate. The issue of decentralization. I want to state that leadership demands that we better the place we find
for the people of tomorrow. And I want to commend the New Dawn administration and President Hakainde Hichilema for making decentralization a reality. I've worked in the local government. From 2003, we've been grappling with decentralization. And why did we want to decentralize? Because we wanted to devolve the functions and resources to the locals, so that all parts of the nation can see a better share of the national cake. Alas, we have had nothing to talk about in terms of fiscal decentralization. The people of Chasefu has had nothing to talk about, and yet they belong to this nation. Physical decentralization was avoided. Coming of the New Dawn, they have actualized. And many times, Madam Speaker, my heart breaks when I hear people to say that this speech of the president is hollow. When we have 25.7 million for the people of Chasefu, is that a hollow speech? Is that a hollow budget? Taking the money to the people of Chasefu. When I'm standing here, I live within Lusaka and the urbanized area. But when you come to Chasefu, ask the people whether they are appreciating what we debate, attacking good things that put them in a better standing as Zambians. This decentralization, it was relaunched in 2013. Nothing happened. From 1.6 million, now we have 25.7 million. What is this money going to do for the rural people of this country? It will build classroom blocks. It will build health posts. It will build police posts. It will put the people, teachers and civil servants back in those facilities. This is what the Zambians have been craving for. And I salute the New Dawn and the president. Keep it up. Close your ears to distractors. The people of Chasefu are enjoying the 25.7 million. Coming to the 2023 budget, Madam Speaker, 28.3 million. Next week I'll be going to the constituency to hand over the first desks. And the whole nation will watch. Is that not a good idea? We need generational leaders. Leaders who are going to transform the lives of the people for the better of tomorrow, so that we leave a legacy. And I've always defined in my own self the president as a generation president. Why do we say so? I know it's heartbreaking for those who are hating. These are realities. I am here as a member of parliament. What do I do better for the people of Chasefu? What I found, they should say that we did this during the time of Nyambose. This is the leadership this nation is looking for. Not coming here, we are debating standing order 65, the people are waiting for development. We should change our type of leadership, Madam Speaker. This budget is really a transformation budget, a budget that deserves support. My great one here said he almost danced breakdance. I don't want to say the same terms. You have seen the temple. No one can talk against this. It's my prayer that they continue next year, the other year. What will Chasefu become? I will be voted on account of what I will deliver, not what I will shoot down here. Of course, there are certain suggestions I can make, Madam Speaker. In terms of the empowerment we have given grants to the skills, TVET skills graduates, I would suggest to say that for the sake of sustainability, we should give preference. That when they graduate, they form cooperatives. We should soften the conditions to give them grants so that they can do those projects in Chasefu. That's what I can suggest. The other issue, Madam Speaker, is that The budget indicates an increment in CDF. What is it that we are going to do in Chasefu? Chasefu is going to have first road making equipment. Has it happened before? What I'll need in the 2023 budget, 2024, is more resources so that the real devolved or devolution type of budgeting takes place. We have never had such resources before. The people of Chasefu, they deserve a good road from Mulundazi to Chama. When are we going to have this road? The people of Chasefu have no secondary school. How is the Minister of Education going to ensure that amongst those 120 programmed, they should come to Chasefu? This is the debate we should have. Encourage those who are doing better. They are bettering what we did who were there. And for those in the future, they should better the lives of the Zambian people. To demonstrate that I've read this budget, Madam Speaker, I've read it. I could have gone in detail. Time normally doesn't allow me. I talk too much sometimes. On page 13, they are going to recruit 256 extension officers. They are going to recruit 4,500 teachers. Right now, Chasefu had only 416 teachers. The coming of the new dawn and President Hakainde Hichilema, we were given 473 teachers. What else do I say when I come here? My people are telling me to be factual and the lobby for the better, like any other should do. Not coming here to say this is hollow, this is what. We are not helping our people. Realities are the ones which have brought us here. Madam Speaker, I can demonstrate page by page. Please, if we love this nation, we are generation leaders. Let us leave this country better than we found it. And you are doing it. May God bless Zambia, bless HH. Thank you.
Okay. There's a point of order. I can't see. The Honorable Member for Mandevu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving an opportunity to the people of Mandevu to debate the motion on the floor, the motion of supply.
Order, Honorable Member, there is a request for a point of order by the Honorable Member for Chiruvi. What is your point of order, Honorable Member?
I've come here to participate, so Mama, as much as you can. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Though the point of order I was supposed to raise on the former commissioner for local government, when he said that there was nothing happening for decentralization, what I understand about policy is that policy is soft policy, also hard policy. When we talk about decentralization, it has got provincial, yes, it has got provincial development committee, district development committee, up to the ward development committee. Those things were read.
Order, Honorable Member, what has been breached?
What has been breached is 65B, where he was not factual about decentralization. And he was a commissioner. He was misreading the House. And I think people that are hearing there would have a wrong concept of what decentralization is.
Thank you for that point of order. All what I can say is that, honorable members, you are debating. You've got your own views, which might be the same or which might be different. So it's allowed that you bring your own views. In fact, that is what we are looking at. Can the honorable member for Mandevu continue?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Minister of Finance proposes to spend 167 billion kwacha in the 2023 budget, of which the deficit of 54 billion will be raised through financing, which is borrowing. I was going to talk a lot about borrowing. However, I know that a lot of members have spoken on this subject matter. And the conclusion is that borrowing was good from the PF government, and borrowing is now good in the new Dawn government. However, we saw a lot of infrastructure projects being undertaken in the previous government, and we're yet to see infrastructure development from the new Dawn government. Madam Speaker, allow me to join the others that have applauded the government for the increase of CDF funds from 1.6 to 25.7 million kwacha. However, Madam Speaker, on page 38 of the budget speech, the Minister of Finance informed this House that he had released 3 billion kwacha, representing 75% of the CDF funds. However, what is in our coffers is only 50%, 12 million kwacha. I don't know whether he has given 75% on the other side and not your left. So I want to urge the Minister of Finance to match his pronouncements and the implementation of CDF. I also, on behalf of the people of Mandevu, welcome the pronouncement of increasing CDF in 2024, taking into consideration of the population and the poverty levels of the constituency. Mandevu constituency is second largest constituency in Zambia, second to Kanyama by population, and we cannot be getting the same amount with the people of Mwandi, who are only about less than 100,000. In Mandevu, we are 600,000 people. And so this is a welcome move, as we believe that this will help our people. Allow me to also comment on roads. I note on page 98 that the Minister of Finance intends to spend 5.2 billion on roads. Mandevu constituency has very deplorable roads, and we hope this will be an answer or solution to the roads in Mandevu constituency. Madam Speaker, the people of Mandevu constituency have also noted the 23 billion in the education sector, and 1.5 billion will be used for the construction of infrastructure and rehabilitation of infrastructure. We are asking the Minister of Education to consider building secondary schools in Mandevu. We only have 7 out of 8 wards, meaning that 1 ward does not have a secondary school. We also note the 930 million kwacha that has been allocated for bursaries and reintroduction of meal allowances. And this was done in line with the New Dawn promises, so we're told. However, the New Dawn promised to provide free education from grade 1 to university. No, we are only providing up to grade 12.
On the honorable member, you are not supposed to answer what the other members are saying. You are.
Thank you for your guidance, Madam Speaker.
You are supposed
I just want to remind them that the PF government reduced school fees from 15 to 200 kwacha. The New Dawn has only removed the 200 kwacha. So you need to note who did more. The Zambian people are asking. So the New Dawn government, if the people are going to respect you, you must fulfill your promise of introducing free education from grade 1 to university. If not, we are going to ask that you give our children bursaries or loans to access private universities. We have limited spaces in universities, and this is why people opt to go to private universities. If you are going to fail to give them free education up to university, may you give them loans so that they can have options to go to university and learn and pay back the loan. Madam Speaker, we have problems of water reticulation and sanitation in Mandevu. We note the budget of 2.6 billion which has been put to this sector, especially the 2.3 which will be used for water and sanitation. We are going to ask our brother, the Honorable Minister for Water and Sanitation, to remember the people of Mandevu. Despite being in the CBD, I have wards like Kabanana, Mpulungwa, Rafael Chota, Roma, which is here. On Monday, I had a meeting with Lusaka Water and Sewerage Company with a community from Foxdale. They don't have water. There is piped water across in Munali. We need our people equally to access clean, safe drinking water. Lastly, Madam Speaker, I want to comment on the need to reduce the cost of doing business. I note that the New Dawn government has a good bias towards foreigners. We have lost money from last year in mineral royalty tax. We want to ask this government to equally give incentives to Zambians who are doing business. In Mandevu,
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
In Mandevu, Madam Speaker, I have people who do welding.
Order, Honorable Member, there is a point of order by the Honorable Minister of Commerce. What is your point of order,
Madam
Honorable
Speaker.
Minister?
I'm rising on point of order number 65, which requires an honorable member to be factual in the presentation of his submission. Is the honorable member in order to come to this honorable house and claim that the Udon government is biased on the investors that are coming from foreign nationals, when the New Dawn government is currently even revising the ZDA Act, which was in successive years been only focusing on foreign direct investment, but we are revising it to be all-inclusive, number one, focusing on local investors. So, Madam Speaker, is he in order to make a falsehood that they perpetuated in the previous government and bring it to us when we are people-centered that are local-driven investors? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you so much. The Honorable Member was actually out of order for saying that the... Can you please sit down? I haven't even finished my ruling. For accusing the UPND government of being biased. My advice to you, Honorable Member, is that you have to be factual. And if you've got evidence to show that the UPND government is indeed biased on that issue that you mentioned, it would have even been better for you to lay the evidence on the table. So let us try to be factual and let us stick to the budget speech. You may continue, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've read the two budgets. By making mineral royalty tax deductible, this country lost 3.2 billion kwacha this year. In the 2023 budget, the Minister of Finance has proposed tax bans. We are losing another 2.8 billion kwacha. The sum of 6 billion kwacha, which money belongs to Zambians, our children and our forefathers. We cannot be giving out this money to foreigners. If this money was brought back to this country, we can subsidize fuel. We can subsidize the cost of electricity. And this entails the cost of doing business will reduce. This is my point, Madam Speaker. With these few remarks,
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
I represent more than 600,000
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
people. And I urge the government, the New Dawn government, to consider this proposal. I thank you so much.
Sorry, Honorable Minister, there is a point of order. You can go ahead.
Madam Speaker, is the honorable member in order to bring falsehoods in this house that the New Dawn government is externalizing money to the foreigners, which is meant for the Zambian people? When the New Dawn government is taking money to the Zambian people through free education, recruitment of the teachers, which then they were in power, they never did.
Madam Speaker, the removal of the mineral royalties is bringing and attracting more investment in the mining sector. Like when we go to Lumwana, Madam Speaker, is it in order to say we are externalizing resources when we are recapitalizing the mines by opening the biggest nickel mine in the country? Madam Speaker, I seek a serious ruling on that one.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. My advice to the honorable members that are debating on the floor, can we please be very factual? Because whatever we are saying, the people out there are listening. And then whatever we are saying, especially the backbenchers, the ministers will come and give a response. But however, please, for the sake of the people that sent you here, can you be more factual? Can we move on to the next debater, the honorable member for Kabwe Central?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing people of Bukavu Central to add a voice on this very important progressive budget. I also want to thank the government, led by the President, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, the Finance Minister, for the job well done for this budget. I can assure you that people of Kawe Central are happy, and they demonstrated this last week on Saturday when they marched in support of the budget, and which has a theme stimulating growth for improved livelihood. From the onset, Madam Speaker, may I say that I'm in support of this budget because it's in line with the 8th National Development Plan. I was so saddened when I heard that some people are saying this budget has got no direction. It has a direction. I want to direct my debate on two sectors, which is mining and agriculture. I know that mining is very important because it's the one that is going to finance the development of agriculture. And I want to give a narration of a man who had 1,000 heads of cattle and yet was borrowing to take his children to school from the Shylock. This is what used to happen in the previous regime, where they are borrowing at a very high cost to finance activities in the country. Meanwhile, we had a lot of mineral resources that we could explore in order to finance development in the country. And I'm happy that the New Dawn government, even from their budget, have said they're going to increase production of mineral, especially copper, to 3 million tons to make sure that...
Honorable member. The honorable member for Ron, please next time do not pass in front of the person debating. Thank you. You can continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was just saying thank you because the New Dawn government has promised that they want to make sure the production of copper increases to 3 million tons in order to realize much tax to finance even the agriculture sector. Madam Speaker, may I say that I'm very much happy that the New Dawn government wants to make sure they revive the farm blocks. One debater was saying that the farm blocks are already developed, like in Ansanga farm block. I'm so sad. Allow me to read from one of the article. Agriculture Minister Michael Katamba has disclosed that the 110,000 hectares Nasanga farm block located in Serenje District, Central Province, has to date not been able to secure any viable anchor for farm investor, as the ZDA is still securing around for a core investor to drive the core activities of the farm block. In New Dawn government, I can assure you that we are not going to parade ourselves to make sure that we have developed these things that we have not developed. We saw previously that even when there's an election, you could see graders being brought to site and say that we are bringing development. After elections, the graders demobilize. This is what now we are seeing, where we are told the farm blocks are already there, when there's nothing tangible happening there. The New Dawn government have said that we want to make sure that there is even processing industries for value addition. They want to make sure that there is irrigation there. They want to make sure there is good infrastructure to make sure that we increase production even in the agriculture sector. And this is going to make sure to drive the economy of Zambia and create jobs. I'm very happy for that. And I want to bring to the attention of this House that through the mining industry, we can reserve some mines that will make sure that some people are willing to make sure that they can explore the mining, and that money goes to the mining, to the agriculture industry to revive the farm blocks. And this is very important and cardinal to drive our economic development. I want to say, Madam Speaker, I'm very happy also that also the New Dawn government want to make sure that through the means of SME that we support the SMEs. And that is very important because they are the major employers in this country. Thank you so much for that, and I want to urge that I'm sure when the minister will come, we'll also make sure that we reserve some money to make sure that we incubate our own people so that they're able to realize much needed profit as they'll be doing their businesses. Madam Speaker, may I also bring to the attention of this House that in Zambia we have got a history of programs not coming to the reality. We can cite an example of PEV Zambia, even FISIP during the previous regime, it was not really managed properly. So as we are going to develop these farm blocks, I want to urge that the New Dawn government, I know now that you are going to make sure that the farm block, they come to the reality as in its intended goals. It is very important to note that when you have killed a big snake in the compound, don't think that the eggs are not there. Don't think that the baby snakes are still there. There are people within the government who want to make sure that the development does not come to reality. And the New Dawn government, please let us open our eyes. We want to make sure that at the end of it all, we are going to say, indeed, we have got farm blocks, we have increased the agriculture production, we are now exporting. People of Zambia now, they have increased, in terms of productivity. This is what we want to make sure that we see, that it is actualized. And this I can testify even from the program in Kabwe for Zamrep. If you look at now the implementation, it's normally at below 50%. So we need to make sure that we guard against our good program from not being actualized to its maximum potential as it is indicated by the New Dawn government. So that we need to make sure that as it is written even in the budget now on page 16, there's paragraph 71 that the government wants to make sure that the farm blocks are private driven. Please let us engage the private sector to make sure that we actualize what we want. If we leave everything in the hands of government driven, we have a challenge because we might see ourselves because of bad elements that we do not actualize what we intend to achieve. So I can assure you that there are people who are ready to make sure that they support the government projects. With these few words, I want to say that I'm so happy with the budget. I know that economic transformation and job creation is going to be attained. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The last honorable member for today is the honorable member for Lufugu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is so wonderful and good to belong to this government. I know most of us, the newcomers, whether from the left or the right, I think we came at the right time. Madam Speaker, the budget, this budget, I think it's a budget that everyone in this House, whether opposing or supporting, we agree that it's the best budget so far. May I, Madam Speaker, first recognize one thing. I've listened to all the debaters on this budget. I know I should be able to give credit to my brother from Katua, who corporately debated the budget and explained it in details. And I think everyone who listened to that debate agrees that this debate, even when other people have said, no, it's macro, it doesn't cut as a micro, we were able to understand how it can even trickle down to the micro. Madam Speaker, may I now take this opportunity to begin.
Order, honorable member, there's a point of order. The honorable member for Lunte, what is your point of order?
Madam Speaker, my point of order is obviously based on Standing Order number 65. And it's, of course, against my honorable colleague who is debating, and I have to apologize for disturbing his flow of thought. Madam Speaker, every member here states their position on the motion on the floor of the House. My honorable colleague should come and sweep all of us and think that we have accepted that this is the best budget address ever, when in fact in this budget there is more borrowing than never before. In this budget, government is going to give unlimited concessions to foreigners. Madam Speaker, have we not debated and declared our position that this is one of the worst budget speeches ever? One of the most political speeches ever. Is he in order, my honorable colleague, to stand here and mislead himself, mislead you, and all of us that we all support that this is the best budget speech ever? I need your very serious ruling, Madam Speaker.
The honorable member who is on the floor, please be very factual as you are debating this budget speech. We've always advised you to say, please avoid debating yourselves. Just talk about your own views, what you feel about the budget. If you are supporting the budget, just state it very clear that I am supporting this budget, so that we don't bring about conflicts or misunderstandings. We are all given an opportunity to come and debate on this floor. So can we have your own views? So with that guide, please, can we hear your views about this budget? You may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The budget is the best ever. Madam Speaker, let me bring the views of Lufubu constituents on the budget. I began by talking about the budget being debated corporately because I want to just stick on the benefits that Lufubu constituents